Gordana Biernat describes herself as a writer, a teacher, and a keeper of wisdom. She's the author of the book Know the Truth, How Knowing Yourself Changes Everything, and she's also one of Oprah Winfrey's Super Soul 100 teachers. I was lucky enough to sit down with Gordana, albeit via Zoom, to have a conversation on my podcast about how changing our perspective can help us tackle fear, live with courage, and literally change the world around us. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. So Gordana Biernat, thank you so much for your time today. So you've kind of described yourself as a writer, a speaker, a seeker, a wisdom keeper, and an explorer of the physical reality. And you've been described as an architect of reality.
Architect of change.
Architect of change, that's right. And you're also one of Oprah Winfrey's, you're on her Super Soul 100 list of awakened leaders and visionaries with a mission to guide and inspire. And there's a lot of what you talk about. I follow you on Twitter. I kind of I pay close attention to some of the messages that you're sharing, because there's a lot of resonance with my own ideas and some of the things I've talked about in my own kind of blog posts and books and things like that. And I really like this idea that we, through our control of our perception and our internal states, we have the ability to influence and change the world around us. And obviously you're a master of this, so it'd be great to kind of get your perspective on it and see, what your thoughts are on being able to control our own version of reality. I don't know where to start.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoy your other podcasts and interviews.
Oh, thank you.
I love how you just jump right in, talking about the exploration of physical reality. I think I've been doing this since I can remember. There isn't a time where I haven't been pondering upon where do apples come from and how come the flower grows and why is it turned to the sun, and that kind of question. So I do see myself as a spirit in a bodysuit exploring physical reality. And I also think that we're actually not here to explore our souls. We are here to explore the physical reality, and our souls and spirits are through this body we are experiencing it, which means that the most spiritual thing I can do is actually to be present in the now moment, in this physical reality, breathing in and out and absorbing everything around me. Because as a spirit, I cannot experience this outside of time and space. So I remember as a young girl, I was thinking about how beautiful it is when you are a soul, and it might be painful to be in a body, because I come from rather harsh background. I had an abusive father, and it was tough. So at times I felt like just escaping the body and being a soul or a spirit would be much, much better. But then I met my husband, and he enjoys life. He loves to eat, to drink, to breathe, to be in this reality. And I started looking at him and realizing that I am not here to find my soul. I am a soul experiencing the physical reality. So the most spiritual thing I can do is to literally be present here and awake to everything that happens. So that has been my philosophy since then, that I am here to explore the physical reality. And so are you and everyone else.
Do you think that outlook has influenced how you see reality? I mean, you said you had a harsh upbringing, and I know a lot of people who are kind of experiencing life from perhaps a more spiritual perspective do have periods in their life that have been quite difficult. I know Sharon Salzberg, Jack Cornfield, people like that do have quite dark periods in their lives that have led them to kind of I want to use awaken in the loosest way possible, but it kind of forces you into a different way of thinking. Perhaps when you have nothing going right for you on the outside, you kind of turn inside, and then suddenly you experience the world and your environment in a new way. Do you think that has had influenced your perspective and
Well, I do think it has, because as I say, I can't remember a time where I haven't been able to find my truths from within. I knew that everything I needed to know, I kind of had to turn inwards to find it. And there is a reason for that, because when you are in a home where you're not communicating with your parents in the normal way, I mean, I couldn't ask questions. I couldn't ask, what are the stars? So I had to figure it out myself. And I think that this is the way my higher self is guiding me in this reality, where I kind of put myself as a spirit in a very harsh environment in order to learn these kind of things. So as an 11-year-old, I could stand by a window and look at the starry sky outside and realize that why I can see the stars when I close my eyes is because my mind or my thoughts are made of the same stuff as the stars. There is no boundary. It just feels like a boundary because I allow my eyelids to drop, but there is no boundary between what is in here and out there. And I mean, I couldn't ask my parents about this because, in a way, every child is smarter than their parent, because that is how we evolve as human beings, or as a collective human mind. We evolve by bringing children into the world that are a little bit smarter than we are, or more illuminated, so to speak. So if I would have asked the questions that I had in my mind, if I would have asked my mother or my father, they would give me two simple answers, and that would be limitations. So in a way, I think that my higher self forced me into thinking about stuff on my own. So as I say in my book, there were 3 participants in my discussions. It was me, myself, and I always, and the universe.
Yeah, of course. But of course, the universe is, everything is one, and there are no boundaries. So
Yes.
I think it's Thich Nhat Hanh said, we are to the world as the leaves are to the trees. We're all part of the same thing, if you like. But do you think your perspective, and it's probably leapfrogging right into another topic, but do you think your perspective, and whatever has created that perspective, your upbringing, your experiences, your view on the world, do you think that actually influences the world around you and your place in it?
Absolutely. I think that I am the creator of my own reality. I'm also responsible for everything that is in it, which means that I'm responsible for my reactions to my perceptions of what it is in my reality. So I do think that the way we look at the world is the way we create it. Yeah. We are co-creators. You and I are co-creating this scenario here, where we are talking about consciousness. And I create you in my reality, and you create me in your reality. And then we find some middle ground where we meet, and that becomes this co-created world we inhabit together. So I do think that I create my own reality, absolutely. And so do you, and so does everyone else. And this is why I really want people to be aware of what kind of thoughts they're allowing to dwell in their minds, what kind of beliefs they are nurturing, and what kind of emotions they're boosting this perception of reality with. Because the stronger the emotion, the faster the manifestation. And remembering where the thoughts come from, if they come from your mind or your heart, and what it is you're manifesting in this world. So in a sense, every single one of us has this responsibility. That is why self-care is not actually just self-care. It is to take care of everyone, and you take care of your own frequency or your own thoughts. Realizing that you are a portal, and the creation of reality goes through you, which means that you're the filter, which means that you decide what is going to be manifested here. That's a very simplified way of looking at it.
Yeah.
And the more people that know this, the more people can be focused on the brightest side of everything. And this is something that I think I talk about it every single time in every interview, that being positive does not mean to ignore the dark side. Something that comes to you that is a problem might not have a bright side.
Yeah.
But it does have a brighter side, because we live in a reality where there is a polarity, because we have free will and we need to be able to choose. So there are always at least two sides, which means that if you have something that looks like very dark problem, there is a brighter side to that. And your job as a conscious human being is to look for that brightest side of that problem and then engage in that brightest side. Not engage in the darkest side, but engage in the brightest side. That might not be happiness and joy, but still to look at the brightest side of everything that comes to you. And I find it very hard to be overly positive all the time, because that's not the truth. There is darker and brighter sides, always. Always focusing on the brightest side isn't the same as always being happy and positive. It means just to look at it from the brightest perspective.
I suppose what you've just said has kind of made me think of about 5 different things I'd like to split off and discuss. But
yes.
But one of the things is just kind of, do we face up to what's going on? I think one of my favorite quotes, and I always misquote it, was something from Byron Katie. And she said that life got much easier when she stopped fighting with reality. So we can have this kind of perspective on life that everything is awful and isn't it terrible, and I'm going to shrink away and let this kind of crush me and destroy me, and I'll stay in bed, or I'll go and turn to the bottle, or find other ways of not facing this reality. Or I can face it and deal with it and not let it upset my inner state. And if we face up to it that way and just take the kind of situation head on and tackle it as it is, often it's not nearly as terrible as we perceive it to be, and that we create it to be in our minds. And I think this is something that's been repeated over thousands of years possibly by the Greeks, by the Stoics, by all of the different kind of philosophical eras, that when you face up to reality, it's not nearly as bad as the punishment you've already sort of the worry and the stress that you've created to yourselves.
There is this Japanese proverb that says fear is only as big as the mind allows, or something like that. I probably misquoted that too, but it is the truth. It is how much you allow of that fear to dwell in your mind. And I think it's easier to allow a lot of fear to dwell in your mind when you don't know who you truly are. And this is another thing that I keep repeating all the time. Knowing who you are means that you also know what is real and what is not, because who you are is real. Everything else is an illusion created by you in this reality. An illusion is not a bad thing. It's just the dream that we're dreaming together here. So you can choose to have a nightmare, but you can also choose to have a pleasant dream. And that's about what I was talking about, looking at every problem from the brightest side. Because when you choose to look at it from the darkest side, that is when you fall asleep to the illusion. And that is where the fear takes over, and that is where the fear decides how big your life is.
I mean, that's
and if you just dare to look at fear for what it is, you realize that it was much smaller than you imagined it to be from the beginning.
There's,
I think it connects to your question.
Absolutely. And there's a psychologist who wrote an article recently, and the title of it was "Everything that arises within you is about you." So, when someone makes you angry, they're not making you angry. That's your inner feeling. And when you're afraid, that's actually a reflection of you. So it doesn't necessarily, you might be faced with a parachute jump or a difficult conversation with your boss, or, you might have a phobia about something, but it's all in here. It's not actually a true reflection of what's going on outside of you.
Oh, yes, that is so true. I had an experience of this just the other day. I was falling asleep, and I had my iPad in my knees, which I shouldn't be talking about because I tell people don't go to bed with your iPad. But I I was about to tweet something as the last tweet before I go to bed, because I reach people all over the globe. So I want to tweet, even if it's in the middle of the night, if I'm awake. And I happened to doze off, and I touched my screen and happened to touch on a hashtag which I didn't want to touch upon. And immediately there was this video that came up, and it was about a woman being wrestled down by 5 police officers in New York. And there was this, she had her daughter with her, and she was maybe 4 years old. And I just saw a few seconds of this, but since I was falling asleep, I was off guard. So it reached me deep into my heart immediately. And I felt my heart racing because I saw it. There is deep injustice. I cannot stand the injustice. So I felt my heart racing, and I literally had to turn everything off, walk out of bed, walk into the bathroom, close the door, turn down the lights, and sit in the darkness to allow my heart to calm down and to get back into the I am, the center, to get back into what is real and detach from the illusion. And that is when I realized exactly what you're saying here, that my fear, I reacted as if I was the one being wrestled down by the police officers, not as if she was. And if I allow myself to be pulled into that fear, and it leaves me powerless, and I'm unable to take action, then I have fallen prey to that fear. I have fallen prey to that frequency, which means that I have connected to a frequency which is not mine, and I am creating a reality which is based upon someone else's ideas of the reality, not my own. And this is where it's not about me ignoring that this woman is being mistreated. It's about me taking care of my frequency so that I can help her and myself in this reality. So let's say that I was a lawyer. If I totally go into that fear and I think, oh my God, this world is so horrible, I cannot go outside because if I'm not wearing a mask, police officers will fight. What is it? How do I put it? They knock you down. I can't even express it in words. That's how awful it is. Then you can't help her. But if you see it, you feel the fear and you detach from it, because the fear isn't real. Where you are sitting, there is no fear. The fear is on a screen. If you can detach from it and say, okay, I will help this woman so that she can sue them, that is where the fear becomes a GPS, or a fear becomes your friend, because it nudges you into the right action. But if you allow it to become a part of you, a part of your perception of the reality, a part of your belief systems about the reality, that is when you become powerless. That is when it becomes externalized outside of you, your power, and instead fear starts living in you. And all it takes is to sit down in a dark room and find the light from within and say, I am not that fear. I am real. Fear is not. Fear is something that I'm creating right now, because there are no officers there. It is total darkness in the room and I am alone. So that is the truth. I think Katie Byron talks very much about, is this true? She asked the question, is this true? And every time you ask that question, you find that nothing is true. Actually, the only thing that is true is that you're sitting asking a question. That's the only truth. That's also mindfulness, to be in that center always.
Do you think, because there are so many inputs, if you like, we have a diet of news media, we have television and soap operas, we have movies, and all of them are vying for our attention. And always the news is trying to be, I guess trying to be is kind of not the right term, but always the news outlets are going for a more extreme view and a more outrageous view, showing you the grittier side or the more outrageous opinion. And they're trying to get your attention because that translates into money, it translates into popularity, this kind of thing.
Yes.
And we become so used to handing over the control of our internal state to the news, to movies. How we feel it's almost like this is no longer our responsibility anymore, because we are so used to having it controlled by what we see on TV, what we read in the papers, what we see on billboards and in commercials even, that perhaps we've lost a sense of being able to take ownership of how we feel and to use that as a sort of motivating force. Do you think there is a kind of difficulty in taking back that power and owning it for yourself?
Well, there is a difficulty because when you do a thing for a long period of time, it becomes a habit, and it's always tough to break a habit. And when you try to break a habit, your body goes berserk because it wants its cocktail of hormones, the stress hormones. When let's say that you say, okay, so next week I'm not going to watch the news and I'm not going to look at all the hashtags and stuff out there. I'm just going to be. And that leaves you in a place where you feel loneliness and it's not loneliness, it's the silence. It is the silence that gives you time to explore things that are in your physical reality, that are there. You know, how the thing I was talking about in the beginning of our conversation where we are here to explore the physical reality. Well, the news is not the physical reality. It is something on a screen. It's a secondary reality. It's like talking about the fear. Real fear is being wrestled down by police officers. That is where you are supposed to feel the real fear. Looking at it is not real fear. That is imagined fear. And it's the same thing with the news. I mean, when you look at your reality, you might see a bird outside or a tree just going like this. Mm-hmm. That's the reality. And I know for sure that the essence of this reality, this oneness we talk about, is unconditional love and acceptance of all that is. And the minute you disconnect from the movement and motion and the attention seeking from the outside, the minute you start focusing on the now moment, you tap into that frequency, which is the essence of who we all are. So if you allow yourself to be in that loneliness, in that stillness, you tap into the real frequency, the essence of what everything is made of in this reality. And that is always calmness. That is always stillness. That is, if someone would ask me, who are you? I would describe myself as that stillness, exploring motion on the outside. And the motion is created by my mind and where I put my attention.
Yeah.
My thoughts and my beliefs and my attention, where I choose to put my attention, that becomes a reality or emotion in that stillness, which I am exploring. So I'm not even my thoughts. I am using masks here to communicate with everyone else because we need a mask. We are in the physical reality and it needs a surface. Oneness needs no surface. Oneness is. So in order to communicate with you, I have to wear a sort of a mask where I am a writer, a teacher, a mother when I speak to my son. And those are the masks I wear and through which I look into this reality. But if I really want to know the truth about this reality, I would go and sit by a tree and just sit there. And that's where I can experience that without even meditating, because it's enough that I sit there. And I think people are having difficulties with doing that because at this moment in time and space, there is this perceived danger everywhere. So we need to be alert all the time. We need to focus our attention on surviving. When we're here to thrive, really, we are here to thrive. So understanding that you don't need to be alert all the time. If you just look around, you will see that everything is still, everything is as it is.
Yep.
But it is hard. It is hard because there is a frequency on the outside and that is wanting our attention because it is a perceived danger. And I'm talking about perceived danger because everything on the outside is perceived. So we can choose what we want to perceive. And if it is real danger or just a secondary danger, secondary fear, we are exploring. I hope it makes sense to you, because
Yeah, no,
there is.
I mean, this whole idea that by focusing your attention with intent into different areas. So when you focus your attention on your son, you become the mother, and you look through mother's eyes. You can, depending on your state of mind, you can focus your attention in different ways. We have, as humans, we have a tendency to focus on everything that's going wrong in our lives.
Yes.
Forget everything that's going right. But when you readjust that focus, you see that actually, my life is pretty complete as it is already. I have so much going for me. I have a beautiful view out of my window. I have a cupboard full of clothes and a roof over my head. And those are my, everything is actually pretty complete. So when you realized this, and you were looking at the stars through the window, and I mean, did your perception of the world, and therefore your experience of it, change dramatically? Did your world suddenly shift from being one that wasn't great to one that was actually filled with wonder and joy, or was it a gradual thing?
Well, as a child, you don't have much choice in your life. So I think I perceived the world when I was alone with myself, it was okay. And then I had to dodge fear when I was with others in my home. I had to dodge fear. So for a long time in my life, I thought that every time I dodged fear, that was happiness. But that's not happiness. That is release. That is release of tension and stress. So in a way, I explored reality through a fear-based thought system until I was around 20 or something like that. That is about the time when I met my husband. But I did have another experience which also dodged me into understanding that life is not about surviving, it is actually about thriving. And I was in a car accident. I was 17 years old, and I felt like I was going to die because the car turned over on the roof and back and forth like that. And I realized that time is not as static and linear as we think it is. It is very bendable depending on who's perceiving the time. So I had a lot of time to think, even though this took maybe 2-3 seconds. I could see the car coming from the other side, and I had the time to think about, I didn't want to experience pain, and about that I was ready to die. I wasn't afraid of dying. I just didn't want to feel the pain. Also, I had the time to see a piece of glass floating like anti-gravity through the air. And I saw this glass, and there was a beam of sunlight hitting it, so I could see all the colors of the rainbow, and realizing that, oh my God, life is so beautiful. I actually do want to live. And then everything stopped. So I did survive it, but I had time to realize that no matter how hard your life is, there is beauty everywhere, because beauty and love is the essence of who we are here. It is the essence of everything. It is the basic foundation of everything. It is the pattern of everything. It is held together. It is the glue. I can't even find all the words I want to, because it is everything. So wherever I look, it doesn't matter what I look at, I will always find beauty in it.
Yeah.
Which means that life is beautiful if I am willing to allow that frequency through me. So I was tuned into a bad frequency because I had to dodge fear. I had to survive. And then I had this epiphany moment where I realized, oh my God, life is beautiful. And after that, I remember standing in the grass, and I was injured, so I had blood on my feet. I was looking at my feet, and then I was looking at the grass and thinking, oh my God, the grass is so green. Has it always been that green? And I looked up, and the sky was blue, and my father was walking towards me. And I looked at him, and I had this feeling like he had shrunk. He felt smaller. And I knew that it was because something happened within me where I expanded in my consciousness, and I felt bigger than he was. And that was the first time in my life I felt something like that a person who I knew as much bigger physically than me, I felt like he had shrunk. So I realized that nothing, nothing is static here. Everything is changeable depending on my point of view and how I perceive it, or more of what I believe about it, because that is where the key is, what I believe about it. So I don't know if you feel the same thing, but when you change a belief, I mean, everything changes. Everything you look at changes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, the way I look at it is that the beauty is there and the ugliness is there at the same time. And it's just a matter of teaching ourselves where to look. It's as actually, I think Oprah Winfrey said it herself. She said, what you focus on, or the things you focus on, expand. And it's, I mean, if you want to talk about it from a kind of psychological perspective, it's about attention bias. So, you know, when you, they always talk about the yellow car syndrome. You know, when someone says, keep an eye out for yellow cars, they're everywhere. Up until that point, you haven't seen any yellow cars today, but suddenly you're surrounded by yellow cars. And it's not that there are more yellow cars. It's just that you're suddenly more tuned into the yellow cars. And we can teach ourselves to tune into the beauty of the world and the beauty in ourselves as well, by just paying more attention to that. And whenever those negative thoughts arise or those negative beliefs, we can say, hang on, today I'm just going to let you kind of sit over there, and I'm actually going to focus on how green the grass is and how blue the sky is today. And that's where, this abundance comes from. Yeah.
Yes, it's a matter of choice, an inner choice. It is the hidden knowledge within you that will give you that choice. And it's hidden because no one else can see it. It is yours. It is in here. So all the occult stuff that we talk about, it's not about others hiding it from others. It's actually about that no one else can see it, only you. It must be perceived from the inside. I write about it in my book, where I say that the hidden knowledge, there is esoteric and exoteric knowledge. And the esoteric knowledge is supposed to be found on the inside. So no one else can do it for you. That is why it is hidden. It is hidden from everyone else, but it is yours to explore. And in that is the choice, what it is you're looking at and how you are perceiving it. There is beauty literally everywhere. Yeah. I mean, I'm an art historian. That is my academic background. I have a master's degree in art history. And I realize why I am an art historian, because I'm looking for the beauty everywhere. I am looking for the Fibonacci spiral. I'm looking for the golden rule in everything. And when I see it, I feel my frequency rising to the right frequency. So it's a way of looking. I thought that I was going to be an art critic, and I didn't end up as an art critic. I ended up as a writer, because that was not what I was looking for. I am always looking for the right frequency, our true frequency in this world. And it is always found in the beauty, and it is everywhere. It's just a question of how you look at it. The way you describe the yellow car and think, it is about synchronicity. It's about positively reinforced synchronicity or negatively reinforced synchronicity. But synchronicity is the pattern, the thing that makes everything appear at the right place in time and space, always. Right, meaning that it is connected to your frequency. So if it's a negative thing, it is still right, because your frequency, the frequency that you're sending out, is matched by that synchronicity. And it is showing you that, okay, you don't like this, then you have to change something, because this is the frequency you're tuned into. Yeah. So you will get synchronistic reinforcement every time. There is no pause button. It is working all the time for you. And the negative stuff is there for you to see that, okay, I need to change. What do I need to change? Yeah. You know, it's like putting your hand on a hot stove and keeping it there. That is what dwelling in fear and the negative stuff is. But we're not acknowledging it for that, because it's emotional and it's private and no one can see it. So we're in that suffering. Usually we would just lift our hand and say, okay, not going there anymore, trying something else.
I mean, a lot of this is about I mean, there are things you can change around you, but when that discontent and that unhappiness remains, those are the signs that you need to change something internally.
Mm.
And I guess it's you said earlier it's about finding out who you really are. But
Mm.
when the person that you really are is buried under possibly decades of bad experiences and negative reinforcement, how do you go about stripping away everything that isn't you to reveal who you are and to experience the world that way?
Well, you know something, the fastest way is to have a near-death experience. That gives you a really good picture of who you
Yeah,
are. But it's about a willingness. It's about a willingness to go higher. And that is the trick, to become willing to do so. Because when we are underneath layers and layers and layers of darkness, and I know this by experience, it is so much more comfortable in all its uncomfortableness to sit with the victim within you.
yeah,
The victim is such a great companion, because it's always there when you're alone. And it says, come sit with me. Let's cry a little bit here. I know everything is horrible, but when you're here, everything is fine. I'll sit with you. And you become friends with that victim. And the only place where you can be yourself is with the victim. Also, the only place where you're not alone is when you allow that victim to speak through you. So it becomes a part of your personality. And when it becomes a part of your personality, it's very, very tough to separate them and say, okay, I am not the victim. It is a voice. It is a narration. It is something that is narrating this world for me. I am listening. I am not the one talking.
yeah. And of course,
It needs an aha moment. I'm sorry. Yes.
no, absolutely, because of course, when you're in that state of being the victim, or that your life is terrible and life is so unfair, because of the way your perspective is set in that, you will see reasons to reinforce that. You will see life
Yes.
will be unfair because it mirrors back who you are. And it's a gradual thing, I suppose, when you do start to make that shift in perspective, and life mirrors that back to you, and things do start to improve on the outside. It can be a slow thing, but eventually you look around and you're sort of thinking, life is not that bad after all. And the more you step up to life, the more it kind of comes to meet you, I think, sometimes. But it just needs that push.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, before I realized that I wasn't my victim, I would allow myself to be dragged into the darkest corners by this victim. And it felt right. It felt like, yeah, that this is how life works. Nowadays, I still have that victim. We all do, because we do. I mean, we always have, the ego will always narrate your reality for you. And the victimhood is an ego thing, even if it doesn't seem like it because you're the victim, but it's still your ego speaking. It is not your highest self speaking. It is the ego speaking. So today, when I hear my ego or my victim speaking, I would say, yes, I hear you. Wait a minute. Is that exactly as you said before? Wait a minute. I'll get back to you. I just need to finish this first. And then when I go back to my victim and I ask the victim, so, okay, what is it that you want from me? Usually the victim wants me to take care of it, which means that I need to take care of myself, to give myself time. So it's not that I shouldn't be listening to it, but it's about not allowing it to drive the car or be the captain of the boat, just knowing that the victim is a part of your ego, as are all the other masks we are using in this world. It's just a part of the ego. It's not who you are. You're the one using all this. I see everything as tools in this reality to explore the reality. So thoughts, tools for you to explore physical reality. Emotions, also tools for you. You're not your emotions. You're not even your body. You're the one using it to explore everything. And the same thing goes with the ego and the dominator within you, the narrative. Everything is just tools for you to explore reality. And that can be a tough thing to understand, that you're actually the stillness and it's your choice. It can be overwhelming when you know that, okay, so I'm choosing this. Why am I choosing this? But that is also a way to get to know yourself. Why am I choosing to be a victim here? What's my payoff when I am the victim? Is it because I have no responsibility, so it feels good not to have responsibility? Or do I want to be left alone? I need some time for myself? Is it that? To ask the questions, why am I exploring this right now? To understand that, why am I, the I being the thing exploring everything?
Yeah.
I think that is where the key is, to understand that the I is you.
Yeah.
And everything else is there for your amusement, if I can use that word.
It's funny. It's there's a form of, well, it's not meditation, but a practice called RAIN. I don't know if you've heard about it, where when you feel something uncomfortable, a negative emotion or some sort of internal pain, there's a practice you can do where you recognize it. So you sort of acknowledge it, you allow it to be there. So you don't try and fight it at all, you just allow it to be there. And then you investigate it. So you say, why am I feeling this way? And then the N in RAIN stands for nurture. So then you start to show it kindness, and you show it compassion. And by the time you get to N, often you find that the pain isn't nearly as terrible as you thought it was. And actually your frequency and your vibration is actually back up, maybe not quite as high as it used to be, but back up to a decent level. And it's that kind of exploring that relationship you have with your feelings, almost like a kind of separate entity, if you like, that gives you that much more, I don't say the word control, but a little bit of objectivity to what's going on.
Yes, it becomes subjective because you realize that you're the one looking at it, you're the one exploring it. Since you can ask questions, then it's not you, it is more outside of you, in quotation marks, because nothing is outside of you. But it feels like you can look at it, which means that you can change it when it's a part of you. That would be like cutting off your hand or something like that, and it feels impossible. So it's much easier when it's externalized in a sense. And that is what you're describing here. Also, I mean, all these negative feelings like fear and anxiety and victimhood, they're dark feelings. They're like shadows, and they don't like light. So every time you are present in the I am, exploring it, meaning you know that you're casting your light on them, they become smaller because they cannot be shadows. Your light is on them. I remember as a child, I had much pain in my knees because I was growing very fast and I couldn't sleep at night. So sometimes I would lay down and try to trace where is the pain. And I couldn't trace it. I couldn't pinpoint where the pain was, because when I thought I found it, it found a way to go somewhere else. So it was very, very etheric. I couldn't put my finger on and say, that is where it hurts. It's a lingering thing. And the same thing goes with fear, anxiety, all the negative stuff. You can't pinpoint it because it's not real.
Yeah.
If you find it and you point at it, you've already diminished half of it. If you shine your light on it by asking, why am I feeling this? And is this real? It almost disappears. And that's why it's never as big as we imagine it. Because it is in our imagination. It's not a real thing. It's an imaginary thing. And it changes when you look at it.
And of course, looking at it and facing up to the fear of whatever the situation may be, often by tackling the situation itself, it takes courage, and you have to have your vibration, your power has to be quite high. I find if I'm tired, if I've not been looking after myself physically, then I become much more anxious. The fear gets stronger and becomes harder for me to tackle. You talk about power, your personal power. How can you protect your power so that you're operating on a much higher level, generally on a kind of day-to-day basis?
Well, it is truly the simplest thing ever. It is about being present in the now, every now moment, about not allowing yourself to fall asleep. every time you feel a negative thing, it is a signal that you're deviating from alignment with the highest frequency possible.
Yeah.
And we are here to explore the negativity, because otherwise we wouldn't understand what positivity is. So we are here to explore it. And it's not bad when you feel pulled down by it. What is bad is if you accept it and allow it. So there is a time frame for you to stop and to say, okay, I need to be present. Sometimes it's enough to just think the thought that, okay, I'm going into a negative spiral here. And then just breathe and say, I am here.
Yeah.
Just to say, I am here means that there is no, you are you, I am, is filling up your entire body. So there is no space for any other frequency than that in your body. Just by stating, I am here, I am present, I am now,
Yeah.
can help you to stay focused in it. And I'm not saying it's easy, because it takes a lot of effort to be present in the now moment in our society, because as we said before, everything is trying to get our attention. And if we allow that attention to float away into a direction where fear lives, like in the future, predictions about the future, then we're not present in the now moment, and that makes us prone to even more anxiety, because anxiety always lives in the future, per definition, because it's unknown.
Yeah.
So just being in the now moment and looking at the leaves, or focusing yourself on a glass of water, enjoying it, mindfulness is actually the key here to not allow oneself to be dragged into negativity. And yet, if you are dragged into the negativity and you explore the negativity, it's a question of how fast you remove your hand from it, from the hot stove. It's a question of how, and that is where willingness is so important. Willingness to always be your best self, the willingness to always find to the I am. And I think the first thing that one loses as a child is the willingness to do so. When you're pushed down into the darker emotions all the time, you lose the willingness to do so, because you know that there is no hope to do so. As a grown-up, you can return to the hope. You can find the hope within you, and then nourish the hope and the willingness to see things differently, to always get back to the, I am willing to see this differently.
I think
this is a mantra. I'm sorry. This is almost like a mantra for me when I feel like, let's say that I have an argument with my husband. I mean, we've been together for 35 years, so I know him. I know who he is. He's a beautiful soul. And yet my ego will find ways to show me that he isn't the beautiful soul, even though I know this truth. So I jump into that frequency. And when I find myself doing that, I have to be awake, and I have to tell myself, okay, so is this true? Why am I exploring this? Being brutally honest to myself, and then say, I am willing to see this differently. And when I say that, I start looking for a different angle. So maybe he is like this because he's tired. I'm finding the ways to find his beautiful self again.
Yeah. Because I guess
his track record tells me that he's beautiful.
I guess it also comes back to this question that you said before. What do I actually know is real here?
Yes.
I can feel all these things. I mean, I'm making a lot of inferences from other bits of information. I'm assuming a lot of things, but what do I actually know is real here? You know, I'm basically a person here having a conversation or having a thought, and that is all I know. And then by the time you've kind of gone through that process, then things have diffused a little bit, and you know, you've come out of it and you're back in the present again, you know.
Exactly. The question, what is real here? Brutally honest answering that. Again, it's about knowing who you are, because you can't say, let's say that I perceive you in a certain way. It's a perception within me. It's a mirror of me. So if I say, yes, that is true, then I am lying to myself, because it isn't. I cannot know anything about you. Nothing. I don't know anything. It's just how I perceive you. So it's with me always. That is why I usually say to children who are bullied that it's not a mirror of who they are. It's a mirror of the lacks within the bullies. It is
Absolutely.
that, but it's very hard as a child to see that. As a grown-up, you can see it. As a child, it's hard. You learn how to accept that as a reality, that what everyone else is telling you, you are.
Yeah.
That is why it's so hard to go back into the I am and say, I am present. That is the only truth. Everything else is perceived.
Yeah. And I guess it comes as well to this kind of question, where does it hurt? You know, when someone is angry and you think they're angry at you or they're being cruel to you, you kind of have to ask yourself, where are they suffering? Where is their pain here? So when you see someone being hateful, or you see, you know, these police officers dragging this woman to the ground, you have to kind of try and understand them. It's very easy to judge and be judgmental, but you have to kind of ask yourself, where is their pain coming from? And the more we ask that question individually and collectively, I think the more we step towards a more compassionate society. Rather than looking for enemies, we just see people with different experiences and backgrounds and perspectives. And we can turn that light on ourselves as well when we're feeling angry, when we're feeling, you know, hatred towards someone with differing views or with a different background. We can stop to ask ourselves, where are we hurting here and why are we hurting? You know, what part of our experience or our identity has caused us to react this way to this situation or this person? That's quite a powerful
I
question.
think, yes, it is. It really is. And I think that the pain, if we are to speak from a spiritual level, the pain comes from the lowering of the frequency or the deviation from your soul source. Because your soul source is always sending the highest possible frequency which can be in a body. And when you're deviating from that frequency, you will feel emotional pain. If it's anger, fear, anxiety, whatever it is telling you that you are lowering your frequency to dangerously low levels. That is why you're having this pain. So I think that anger usually stems from fear of something. So you get angry, you need to protect yourself. And when I look at it from that perspective, I can see that there are no perpetrators. There's only victims in all of this.
Yeah.
But if I look at it from a human perspective, I can see that there are 5 men wrestling down a helpless woman, and that makes me angry on a physical level. But on a spiritual level, I can see that there are no perpetrators. There are only victims, and all of them are falling asleep to who they truly are. Because when you know who you truly are, you cannot hurt anyone else. It's impossible for you to do so, because you know that you are hurting yourself. And I think that ego plays an important role here. In my book, I write about ego as a mechanism, as a neutral mechanism, separating us from all that is. If I don't have an ego, I don't have any desires. And if I don't have any desires, then what am I doing in this physical reality? We are the sum of our desires here. We are here to explore something. I am my soul's desire to explore physical reality. So my desires are kept in my ego, in a sense. So if I look at ego as this glass, when I use my ego the right way, my soul can be here and I can see everything. I know that there's something outside of me. I don't need to protect myself to survive. I understand that I'm just one part of all. But when I lose the connection to my soul, when I go into fear and go into the lower frequencies, this glass will not be transparent. It would become sooty or black, or you can't see through it anymore. And you think that what ego presents to you is all that is. There's nothing else. So you're separate from everything else, and you are here inside, and you need to protect yourself from other black glasses out there. And that is not the truth. That is when the ego is allowed to drive the car and not the I am. And the ego can be, as I say, a victim, a perpetrator, whatever it chooses to be, what mask it chooses to use. We are using these masks because who we truly are, the frequency, we're not able to perceive it in the physical reality. It is too strong for us to perceive. So that is why the ego is kind of a protection so that we can explore surfaces here. But everything is illusionary, is still. So when we lose the connection to our highest self, the ego becomes this black thing and we can't see through it. We can't see the truth that we are not alone, that we are one of many. We can't see it. And I think that when you are able to hurt someone, you're always speaking from the ego. You're not speaking from your highest self. So hurting other sentient beings is a sign that we are living in an ego-driven society. And as I say, ego isn't bad, it's just how you use it in this reality.
Do you think we've given over the responsibility for our own actions and our own beliefs to our egos, and that we use our egos in a way to absolve ourselves from taking any kind of responsibility for the state of our perceived world? You know, you can sort of say, well, it's not my fault, I'm just like that, I'm just an angry guy, or I'm just a moody person, it's not my fault. It's just how I'm made. Do you think we're behind it?
Well, that's a very, very, very interesting question. And I do think that it is that way, because the ego will allow you to escape responsibility. Your responsibility is everything you have in your reality is your responsibility. How you react to it is your responsibility. It doesn't matter what it is. Your reaction is your responsibility. And I think that we do not want to have that responsibility. Most people do not like to hear it, because we are almost born into this world as victims. We are taught very, very early how to become victims, because there's always rules we need to follow. We're never allowed to explore our curiosity past 4 years old, I think. And then we start to be taught how we're supposed to be, and when we're not that way, we are punished, and then we become victims, and that becomes our mode of living. I think Marianne Williamson talks very much about that we live in a society which is a thought system which is fear-based, and I don't think that we've always had it this way. We have created it by believing what the ego narrates for us is real in this reality. And if we allow the ego to become unhealthy, then we are creating fear instead of love, allowing love. So I think that fear is created and love is allowed.
So how do we keep our ego healthy? What are the kind of practices we can engage in,
Yes, and it is about allowing the I am to be there, just to sit there in that I amness and look at things and ask questions. Where does this apple come from? Being humble, realizing that we're not the pinnacle of everything, that there are other forces here that are keeping this world in a perfect state if we allow that to be so. So just nature, for me, nature does a lot of things for me. I mean, it tunes me into the right frequency. It tunes me away from the ego, allows the ego to be there, because the ego tells me, I want to explore that, I want to explore this, and points at things, but it's still me. I can say, okay, let's explore that, not that. I am the parent to the ego. The ego is a playful child. That's how I look at it.
Mary Oliver, the poet, she had a very short poem, and it was called Instructions for Living a Life. And I think it was just 3 lines. It was pay attention, be amazed, and tell about it. And I guess paying attention is mindfulness. Being amazed is, just being astounded by how beautiful the world is. And then sharing it is, that's a pretty good recipe for living a good, positive, fulfilled life,
It is. It really is, to be present and to allow that to evolve without interfering, just looking at it. Yeah.
So I know I've taken up quite a lot of your time already. So I'll kind of wrap it up now, but I have one question. So And it ties in with what you were saying earlier on about perception and me being in your universe and you're in my universe, and we create it through our perception in our minds. Where does that leave room for imagination? So you've talked about exploring the physical world. Where does that lie with the kind of imaginary world and fantasy and poetry and art and things like this that all come from the imagination? Because I can't remember which scientist or philosopher said it, but they said that the universe is made real by our ability to perceive it, and perception doesn't occur out there; it occurs in here. So behind our eyes, behind our sense of touch, and it's in here somewhere in our spirit, our brains, or our soul, and we're able to make some kind of amazing sense of what we're perceiving. But it also in here is imagination and dreams and fantasies and visions of all kinds of amazing, wonderful things. And as an art historian, you've seen how artists have interpreted these things and made their great masterpieces. But you talk about exploring the physical world. How does that sit next to the imaginary world, which kind of exists in the same space inside ourselves? How do we
Well, the way you describe it, I think that the receiver is inside of us,
okay,
but the information isn't. So when I have a clear receiver, when my mind is connected to my heart, that is when the receiver is open, and I can literally download what I need, and that is matching my frequency. When I'm open, and that is to be in the I am, always to allow that to be open and to allow free flow. I know that when I'm overthinking stuff or when I'm over preparing and not present in the now moment, then I am not creative. But when I allow that to be as it is, when I trust that everything I need will come to me when I need it, I am so much more fun in that meeting because I am present and I am allowing it to come through me. So I think that art and everything, poetry, literature, everything that is in that sphere needs you to be relaxed in order for it to flow freely through you. And becoming relaxed is about knowing who you are and allowing things to come through you. You can't force anything, because if you force it, then the frequency is forcing, and the universe gives you more opportunities to force yourself upon them. That is the main key to all of it, is to relax yourself into who you truly are, to allow that frequency that everything is as it is, and just allow it to be that way. And I was thinking about, say again, yeah?
No, I was going to say, it's almost like just being open to the world as it is meant to be perceived by you, I suppose.
Yes. You know something, I think we should end with one thing from my book.
Yeah,
I love to end stuff like this because it tells you literally who you are. And I'll read for you. It is Truth Thought number 231, because you can use my book as an oracle, and I choose 231 today. So I want you to do what I tell you to do, and we'll do it together, okay? Yeah. So put your hand on your heart and repeat after me. I am the light in the darkness.
I am the light in the darkness.
I am the love in the hate.
I am the love in the hate.
I am the calmness in the storm.
I am the calmness in the storm.
I am the courage in the fear.
I am the courage in the fear.
And that's it. This is who we all are, because that is the essence of the universe. Everything else is created in our minds when we are in fear or in a belief that is not beneficial for us.
And that puts us at the center of it. The calm center of the storm, yeah.
Always, always. The storm is always going on. It's a beautiful thing. That is what we're here to explore. But you can always put out your I am hand and pick out things and say, okay, I don't like that. Maybe I like this. And you put that and look at, oh, this I like. I'll explore that more.
Absolutely.
That's what it's all about.
Fantastic. Well, I think we've explored a lot already, and I feel like we could carry on for many more days
hours.
to come.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. But
Yes.
I won't keep you any longer. But thank you so much for your time today. That's been really useful, and you've shed some new light and given me some new perspectives on things that I thought I had a good idea about, but now I've got another direction to go and explore. So I'm very happy about that. I'm very grateful as well.
So beautiful. Thank you so much. I enjoyed our conversation.
Great stuff. Well, have a lovely day. Thank you.
The same.
All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with me and Gordana. Really fascinating stuff about how our mindset and our perception changes the world around us and can help us influence our experiences day to day. And, by overcoming fear that isn't based on anything real but is created within us, we can start to live more courageously and shape our world to benefit us and to benefit those around us. In my next podcast, I'm going to be talking to one of the original life coaches, Cheryl Richardson, which is going to be an equally fascinating conversation. And I look forward to seeing you then. All right, thanks a lot.